And today's guest on the Financial Planner Life podcast is Nikos Christoforou. He is a senior partner here at Foster Denovo. He's taking his business to 500k turnover and 30 million under management. And today he shares how he did this, how the environment here at Foster Denovo has supported him to be a huge success in his financial planning career. Nikos, thanks for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, Sam, thanks.
Fantastic. Well, we're back again at Foster Denovo. Always a pleasure to meet you. And today you're going to tell us a little bit about your career journey at Foster Denovo, what you were doing beforehand and where you currently are now, and really what the future looks like for you. What have you learned along the way as well? What's going to inspire those listening to this podcast right now to make a change in their financial planning career? Because it's not easy, it's tough. You're living proof of that, and today you're going to share that journey with us and hopefully some learnings and some teachings along the way. So let's just crack on first of all with who are you, what you're currently doing at the moment, and how you ended up at Foster Denovo.
Cool. So I'm a senior partner at Foster Denovo. I've been doing this under FD's umbrella for, this is year 6 or 7. Prior to that, I was at a large wealth management firm. So I suppose the journey really for me was just, I've always been into finance as a youngster. So I started off at stockbroking. So that's how I got my qualifications. And then I went to a wealth management firm. And that was really like my introduction to dealing with financial planning of any sort, really. After sort of doing that for a while, it was very much product selling, which, I'm going to avoid the good and the bad on that. It's like politics. But then when I joined Foster Denovo, that was really sort of the entry into like holistic financial planning, really sort of digging into tax, estate planning, and really meaningful planning for clients overall, if I'm honest with you. So where I'm at now, I've built the business. It's grown year on year fairly aggressively, sort of 500,000 in turnover. And sort of, I think... where I am now is, it's a really good place to be, to be honest with you. And the future really looks very bright. I've built a really good team underneath me to help support.
Fantastic. Well, let's get stuck into it then. So first off, though, actually, I'm going to ask you a quick question about product sales, right? You talked about product sales and then financial planning. 2 separate things for you then. You've experienced both sides of it. For someone listening right now who might be going like, well, what's he on about? What's the difference?
Well, when you're selling product, you don't necessarily have... You're not looking at a breadth of products and services available across the financial landscape. So you're really tied to the provider that you're dealing with. So there are a lot of networks where you can only deal with, for example, an Aviva pension. Like that's the only thing that you can sell, and that's the only thing that you can advise on. So you can really only advise on the products that the company you work for is providing you. Mm-hmm. Whereas financial planning is more about looking holistically and having access to being able to look over the market and build solutions that are truly custom for a client based on like objectives or where they're trying to go in life.
Okay, great. So that's a great explanation. Thanks so much for that. And I think that'll just kind of clear a few things up with people. So moving from that kind of what you suggested to be like product sales and then moving into Foster Denovo, tell us about your first year then at Foster Denovo. Was that tough?
The first year was really tough because I think especially coming from somewhere where I was selling product, it was a lot easier to get up and running. So when I was selling products as opposed to what I'm doing now, it was very much month 1, I was in the green. So you were able to process business a lot quicker because you've got less things to check because you're only selling the one product or the provider, I should say. The first year was a real adjustment, and it was really it was hard on a few things. One was ego, myself getting in the way, and the second was really having to transition my mind away from I'm selling something where the product fees that the client pays me versus actually having to charge for the advice that I'm giving, irrespective of what product happens. And I think that was the biggest mindset shift that I had to really understand and go through. And it took a while. It took a lot of practice. It took a lot of really honing into where did that meeting go right? Where did it go wrong? Where did I lose a client? What went really well? And really learning and taking on people that were a lot further ahead of me really looking at, okay, well, what are they doing? How are they doing it? How are they saying it? Why do they say it like that? What does that actually mean? And then really incorporating it into my own approach.
Great. So quite uncomfortable then that first year for you.
Massively.
Were you self-employed?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So that pressure upon you also being self-employed to be able to develop business when you're used to like the product sale, right? And that's going to bring you some income in nice and quick. Whereas took a lot longer.
Yeah, the processes are a lot longer because there's a lot more to check. There's a lot more regulation that you have to get through. And I think the other thing to consider is when you're working with a product provider where you're selling the product, a lot of the administration or power planning is sort of built into the provider. So there's less things that you almost step into this world and you don't really know what you don't know. So starting from day one, it was a bit of a shock where I'm like, I've got to pay for admin, I've got to pay for power planning. And when you've got no clients and no revenue coming in and all of a sudden you've got these quite large overheads, it gets a lot. And I think the big thing was where I was before, I was fairly good at what I did. So went from sort of high flying, doing really well, and then coming into this world, there was a big knock to the ego because you couldn't get up and running as quick. It didn't matter how good you were. You had to learn the process. You really have to get the rhythm and the pace right, because when you're selling a product, the sales, the onboarding, everything's well streamlined. Whereas when you're doing more holistic financial planning, it's really not. So you have to really learn how to balance where you spend time, because you could go out and book, say, 50 first client meetings, but if you try to take them all on at that, you'd break. So I think it was really understanding looking at the Foster Denovo and going, okay, well, how does business get processed? What's the actual steps that it all goes through? And then learning how to, on the front end, gear everything so that it's a smooth transition. I think that would have been one of the areas that I invested more time in, because me being me thought, if I just go out and get clients and clients and clients, everything else will take care of itself. But I think the biggest transition when I went from product sales into Foster Denovo and building the practice that I've built is you really have to pay attention to the business. You're actually more of a business owner, whereas when I was self-employed prior, it wasn't really a business. It was all depending on me just going out and meeting clients and getting business through the door.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now, coming into Foster Denovo within that first year, like you said, it was a bit of a baptism of fire. You probably thought, well, I'm the kiddie, I can walk in here and I can do this no problem, because I did it very successfully previously, right, in the wealth management company that you were in. It sounds to me like you quickly had a bit of a baptism of fire, a bit of a humbling, right? What did you do though in that year? You mentioned about like the ecosystem and having people to lean into. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How important was the actual environment you were in and the people within it?
Oh, it was pivotal, because without the support that I ended up managing to get from Foster Denovo, which only come from walking the walk, doing the doing, but also building and cultivating relationships with the right people. But one of the first things that I did was, Foster Denovo's they've got offices all over the UK. So one of the first things I did is I found out who were the top practices operating across Foster Denovo. I booked time with them to just go, okay, can I sit in your meetings? Can you just walk me through how do you introduce X, Y, and Z? What's your first 10 minutes of the meeting look like? Really leaning into the words that they were using, because it was a different world to me coming into this. So I think leaning on, there were people like Dave Stockdale, Matthew Mitten, I could name loads of people that I've sat with over the years, Andy Robertson, who have dramatically helped me understand how to do what it is that we actually do.
You mentioned there about the stockbroking and the product sales side of it, okay? Transitioning into true financial planning with Foster Denovo. Are you grateful that you had that experience previously coming in? Did it give you a leg up, if you like, in areas which some individuals might struggle in, like building relationships or outreach to new clients, prospecting, client acquisition? Do you feel like that the value it added?
100%. I think coming from stockbroking, you have to have a very thick skin. You're calling all day, every day, trying to get clients, and you're getting a lot of rude words thrown at you, phones hung up. So having that background really did help, because a lot of this is failing forward, especially your first year. you have to realize that you don't know what you don't know, and you're not going to know until you fail forward and learn and get sort of feedback and you can respond. So I think one of the biggest things to do is make sure that the activity levels are high, and really make sure that you're getting in front of as many people as you can to hone. That first year should all be about honing your proposition and honing your knowledge on how to position it, what you do.
Yeah. Okay, so let's be realistically here, right, with somebody. You're self-employed as a financial planner. Were you earning lots of money in that first year?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, it's like any business. You get revenue come in, you pay your splits, you pay your staff, and if there's anything left over, you might be lucky after the taxman takes his piece as well. No, it is very much, I mean, the mentality that I had coming into this is you can earn enough to get by in your first couple of years, but it's all about making sure that you don't sacrifice the short term to get the income by building the wrong kind of client base.
Right.
So I was very much focused on, I didn't want to have hundreds of clients. I wanted to have a more niche approach where I've only got a handful of clients that I'm managing, but the asset pool's bigger, and you're adding a lot more value through other areas. And I think that's really, well, for me, that's what worked really well, because I was able to build a good pool of assets that I'm overseeing with less people to have to service to maintain it. Okay. And that allowed me really to have the time to hone my own knowledge, my own expertise in other areas to keep pushing the business forward.
Fantastic. So let's just move into that point then. So it was tough in year one, even tough in going into year two, right? And that's a realistic thing to say. You're how many years now you've been here?
This is 6, I think.
So year 6, and now you're approaching a £500,000 a year turnover for your business. What have you got under management?
Just shy of 30 million.
Just shy of 30 million. Fantastic. So huge success within that period of time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen in the first couple of years, but the hard work and the snowball effect, if you like, does take place if you're doing things right. And what I'm getting from this is within that year one, it's like put ego aside, lean into those people around you that are doing well, that have got the processes and everything in place. Don't think you can just run in here and just do it. Yeah. You need to listen, you need to look, you need to build those foundations and start to build upon it. Because if you go out and try and win loads of clients, you could be the best relationship builder or salesperson in the whole wide world, but if it's built on bad foundations, you're going to have real struggles. So a bit of advice to somebody in their first year probably is that, isn't it? It's just focus on the actual foundations of your business. How strong actually is it? Because if you're not building upon that, how can you go out and grow it, right?
And I think take time to really define the business that you're building, because unless you have a plan of what a good outcome looks like, you're not designing your life, it's being designed for you. And I think, if you go out and just take on every single client, the problem that you end up having is if you don't invest in really making sure that you know exactly what your value is and where you offer value, and if you just take on lots of different clients doing lots of different things, you end up not mastering anything, and you end up taking on clients that down the road problems will occur because the foundations weren't there, and you not missold, but you end up saying something that isn't quite right, or you end up doing something that maybe you shouldn't have done it in that way and you should have looked at it a different way, and you end up missing things which ultimately dents the relationship, because trust, it takes ages to build, but it can be gone in an instant. And I think that's really important, to make sure that you deliver what you say you're going to deliver, and really take the time to try not to worry too much financially. Know that, it is 2 years of pain, but after 2 years, it will get better. Yeah. And really take the time to invest in your knowledge, your skill set, and your ability to present.
Yeah, perfect. So what was the turning point then? So there's always a turning point. They call it a tipping point, right? What was the turning point for you, or the tipping point? Did you do something slightly differently? What worked?
Yeah, so I think after the first sort of year, I mean, I went, as I said, I failed forward. I got as much activity as I could to get as much feedback to start tailoring the approach that I have with clients. And one of the things that I found worked really well for me was because it's if you say to someone, "Oh, I'm a financial planner," that doesn't really mean anything, and it can be so vast. What somebody deems financial advice, you'd be surprised. I've had clients ask me about what energy provider they should go with for their utilities, honestly. So I think one of the things that I did, and I didn't I didn't create this. I didn't reinvent the wheel. I took pieces from people over the years or so that I was there, and I created like a 4-pillar approach to financial planning to help people try to segment in buckets what it is that we actually do. And I found that once I started being able to categorize what we do in buckets, it made it a lot easier for people to understand and go, those buckets mean more to me than the other two, or that's the one that's really important for me. And then by doing that, you end up allowing yourself to go, okay, that's where we need to focus our attention, or educating the client to focus on something else first.
So kind of establishing where their main concerns are, and those buckets were visual aid for the clients to actually articulate, I'm in that category. So instead of their brain being so scattered, which is quite interesting what you said about the someone thinking about their energy bills. That's really important. People actually, that lives in people's heads. It does in mine a lot. I'm not very super organized when it comes to the house stuff. So that lives in my head if I don't do something about it, if I'm not budgeting for it, if I'm not doing my research and making sure I'm paying too much over there or over here. So it does kind of live in people's heads. But if you can visualize something, if I can visualize it, if I can see it written in front of me, and I can very quickly categorize that emotion within that area of concern for me or whatever, and you can pull it out of me, it's going to be a lot easier for me to deal with. Tell us about these 4 pillars then. So what are the 4 pillars?
So the 4 pillars of financial planning are cash flow forecasting, which how much detail do you want me to go into?
Just keep it kind of top level, really.
Okay, so pillar 1 is cash flow forecasting, which is using various softwares to plan out someone's life, look at the different events that bring money in, take money out, and almost stress test different scenarios so that you can identify where the weak areas or where the risks are in someone's plan, and that you can then advise on how to protect against it or to overcome any shortfalls. Pillar 2 is like a financial asset review and strategic optimization. So that's looking at the existing assets that a client has, and not looking at performance and cost only, but looking at the wrapper and the suitability of the product, and establishing whether that's the right vehicle to have. And strategic optimization is really looking at what allowances do they have and what's the most tax efficient way of utilizing those allowances. And then pillar 3 is bloodline and protection planning. So God forbid you die, making sure that the money you have goes to the people that you want to get it at the time they want to have it for the purposes they want to use it for. And looking at creating protective trust frameworks to prevent wealth cascading out of the bloodline. And then pillar 4 is money management. It's, well, now you know sort of the modeling that you're looking at. Now you know the products that you should be using, and now we know how we're utilizing allowances and we're protecting it in trusts. Then it comes down to, well, what do we actually do with the money in the products? How do we invest the money? And it's crafting the right approach for a client. And there's lots of different ways to go about it, but generally speaking, they're the sort of headliners.
Do you tend to find as well that someone might gravitate towards one of those pillars over the other? Is there any set kind of process to it when you do it?
Yeah, I think, everybody seems to like the idea of saving tax, and everybody thinks that it's all about investments. What funds are the best, and how do I build this portfolio, and how do I get that return? And everybody wants 20% return and isn't prepared to risk a percent of downside to get it. So I think most people gravitate to the idea of the money management and the tax planning side, so like pillar 2 and pillar 4. But what you often find if you do the job right and you educate people throughout the process is that they actually start to go, no, do you know what? It makes more sense to look at pillar 1 first, and pillar 2, then pillar 3, and pillar 4 once we have the plan.
Yeah. It's a good time then, really, because you're thinking about visualization. I'm visualizing it now. It's a lot easier for me to understand what it is you're actually offering somebody. How did you use that in the actual client acquisition process? Because at that turning point, you created the pillars. You use those pillars as a visual aid, for instance, to the clients, and then you're going out to try and win those clients. So you're obviously very good at going out and getting clients. Not everybody is. So give us a bit of an insight into what you did, how you did it, what you do, what's your strategy when it comes to those client acquisitions?
The strategy in terms of getting the meetings, or the strategy when you're in the client meeting?
Let's go for both of them.
Well, I mean, getting clients or getting meetings is, there's lots of different ways, and you can create LinkedIn brands and you can do it slowly, or, one of the things that I preferred to do was to look at the types of clients I wanted to deal with. So I do a lot with lawyers, ship brokers, consultants. And what you often find is a lot of these law firms will have their lawyers, they'll have a contact list. So they'll actually have all the names and numbers on the website. And I found in the past, by just being a bit direct and just calling people and just going, look, this is sort of what we do. These are the sort of things I look at with people in other law firms that I deal with, and outlining it to somebody in that way helps really to get meetings, because you just get a quick response. You get no because, or put the phone down, or someone will go, yeah, I'll hear you out. And then when you're in the meeting, I think you just have to structure it. Like as human beings, we like loops, story loops. So you just have to think about what's my intro, what's the middle, and what's the end. So the intro should be very short. You shouldn't be talking too much. Once you've done sort of, what do you want to get from today? What's your objectives? Making sure that you hear them and make sure that you craft your words to tick what it is they want. Then I normally go into the 4 pillars. So this is what I actually do. Then I relate back to them and go sort of, out of that, does anything pique your interest? Is there anything that you're like, actually, no, that's an area I want to really focus on? And again, by just doing that, you keep them involved. And then just being blunt and going, look, this is how it works. Today's at my cost. If we move forward, it will be a strategy report, which I'll charge X for. Or if we go straight into an advice look at, these are how the fees work. And then just making sure that you spend as much time really digging into the person as you can, really getting to know what drives them, why they're here. And I think when you first start, it can be very easy to just sell everybody. And sometimes you have to look at it. If someone's not getting it, or they're making it very difficult, you have to ask yourself, are these actually the right people to take on? Because they're the people that you might sell them, you might convince them to do something, but then down the line you'll get problems because they weren't invested in what it is that you're actually doing. They were normally just saying yes for example, they've got 15 pensions and they know that you can consolidate them into one. So that's the real reason they're there, not really looking at anything else.
Excellent. So picking and choosing the clients that you work with, is that quite important with you?
Yeah, I think you have to have an idea of who it is you want to deal with in your head, and irrespective of the amount of money that you're dealing with, the type of personality that you're prepared to deal with. Because, in the short term, it's really simple. You just take on money and you think, oh yeah, great, I'll just do a job. But, you have to see these and speak to these people multiple times throughout the year. I speak to all of my clients multiple times throughout the year. So you have to be very mindful of, are these the right types of people? Are they coachable? Are they going to make the job more difficult? Or are they invested in what you're actually trying to do?
Fantastic. These 4 pillars of well-being, right? Financial well-being, essentially. The response that you get from the client should give you an indication as to how invested they are in you as a person and the solutions that you're offering. So it's a great way to kind of quickly build connection, right? And it's a very quick, easy, visual way to categorize where they might be feeling empty or struggling in a certain area. So I do like that.
Especially if you name it. So if you create a process and name it, it helps people. Like, the 4 pillars, like all of my clients will know what the 4 pillars are. And I think by just naming it something, it really helps. And I pinched this over the years from Dave Stockdale. Initially talked to me about how he segregates what he does. And that's really sort of where I got it from. And again, that's just the benefit of working with a company like Foster Denovo. You can really lean on key people and they can really help you if you're prepared to listen to the gems that they have to say.
No, I like it, absolutely. Processes, you're a process man. Is it something that you religiously do daily? Are you always looking to improve processes? Is financial planning a series of processes?
Oh, of course. Processes are really important, and it's something that, again, if I was to go back, I would have invested more time in processes, especially when you work with a company and they've got systems. I was a bit arrogant to go, well, I don't need to use those systems. I want to, as a control freak, track and do everything myself. The problem that you then do is you end up duplicating work, you end up causing more work down the line, and as your business grows, you're going to have to rely more on those systems. So you have to look at creating the processes that are right with the systems that you have and with your own approach. So you have to look at minimizing. For example, when I first started, I used to always do 3 meetings before I would try to onboard a client. I very quickly realized you don't need 3 or 4 meetings. You can actually do it in 2 if you are more specific with the types of conversation that you're having with people and you know exactly how to target things a bit better. But processes are really important because there's so many things that you need to track. There's every day tasks are coming in left, right, and center. You're dealing with, say, 90 people, and of those 90 people, every day there's always something. So you're always getting new tasks coming, and different tasks will have different deadlines or urgency. So you have to make sure that you're tracking your tasks. You have to make sure that you're tracking your new business, your conversions, as well as just tracking where it is, who's it with, what's holding it up, because you're dealing with multiple different providers, different clients, different personality types. It's quite vast.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're on your way to 500k turnover, if not doing 500k at the moment, right? Let's look at how you get there, because not everybody gets to that level. And I don't think it's as simple as just, again, being on your own, smashing out the telephone, getting clients on board, chucking the sausage meat in the sausage machine, and at the end comes sausages. It doesn't quite work like that. In between, you need a butcher, right? You need somebody in the middle, don't you, who's going to be making things happen and keep making sure the process is in place. There's only so much that you can do yourself as a financial planner. So being in the ecosystem of Foster Denovo, we've talked about the support you've got from other advisors. You turn your head to the left and the right. There's some really good individuals there. They give up their time to mentor, coach, and guide. You've failed in the sense of Ford when it comes to reinventing the wheel. You didn't really need to do it, but you kind of had to do it because you're an experiential learner by the sounds of things. You had to learn through failure, which is totally cool and understandable. But Foster Denovo as a company have seen it time and time again, haven't they? They've seen what works, what doesn't work. So tell us a little bit about why that's beneficial if you're self-employed and you come into an ecosystem like Foster Denovo when it comes to building processes, but also the opportunity they provide self-employed people to accelerate their business through building a practice underneath the company.
The support that FD have provided has been invaluable, because it was the only way that initially I could get an admin person, get a paraplanner, and then you start learning what works, what doesn't work. And I think the main thing that's been beneficial for me is the building of my own practice, and they have supported me endlessly to try and achieve it. So now I have a practice manager who runs everything for me, and then having sort of the admin underneath her who are feeding into her. So she's sort of like the gatekeeper of tracking all of the processes and the systems and the various spreadsheets that we have to manage our day-to-day. And Foster Denovo have allowed me to do that by just, I think your first few years the first 2 years are very challenging. So being able to you have to be able to prove yourself, because you have to make sure that, they're going to invest in you if you're worth investing in. And I think one of the things that really allowed me to build quickly was it was the support that they provided, but it was also the investment into learning the craft. So when I deal with clients, there are a lot of advisors that if you ask the client, who is that guy or girl to you, they won't necessarily say they're my financial advisor. They might say, oh, he's my pension guy, or she's my pensions woman, or oh, they do my life insurance. And I think that is, you end up taking on clients and only dealing with one aspect of their planning. And I think one of the things that really works quite well for me, and it really come into fruition from year 2, is when I deal with a client, it's, I'm dealing with everything, not on it's the protections, the pensions, the investments, the tax planning, the estate planning. So the case sizes are a lot higher per client. So that means if you invest the time in the learning of how to get, it sounds bad, to get everything, to deal with everything, and someone can trust you to do that, you end up not needing to get as many people, because you're getting a lot of value for what you're providing a client. But the support that FD have provided me has been, not just people, but when you're on your own, you've got no one to lean on, right? So if something happens, or you get a really tricky case, or you hear about something you're not 100% sure on, you've got no one to fall back on, no one to talk to, no one to consult with, other than maybe a few other business owners or other financial practices, which, depending on where they work, will be completely different to what you can do. And I think one of the things that's been really helpful to me is, especially as the business has grown and the types of clients I'm sitting down with are more complicated, and you're getting bigger, more different cases, it's been having people to be able to go and speak to about it and go, well, oh, I know that, for example, Dave Stockdale and Andre, they're really good at estate planning. So if I need to go and speak about trust, I'll go to them. If I need to speak about something really technical and specialist, I'll go to Neil Wortham, because the guy's knowledge on bonds and estate planning is crazy. So just having people to lean on, both from a stewardship of how does this work, what's actually going on here, as well as having the people that you can use and pay for to help build and run your business, has been invaluable.
Yeah. I think also as well, having that ecosystem where you can quickly scale is important. I think, if you're in a business and you're on your own and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh no, now I'm going to need a bloody location and I've got to hire an administrator. Do I hire them or do I outsource? Or, how do I've got to pay them, I've got to mentor them, they got holidays and all that type of stuff. Compliance, everything. So all of a sudden there's like a lot of responsibility when you're running a business and it's your own business. But when you plug and play into something like Foster Denovo, there's a lot that they can do, because all of a sudden you could turn around to like Helena, for example, who can find you an administrator or a power planner. Or there might be one already in the business, already used to the processes, is that you can actually lean into. You might use them for a percentage of their time. You might not need them full time. So you might sort of lean into it and grow it gradually and grow it. And I think taking away those responsibilities and taking away that extra brain power, right?
Oh, it's massive.
It's massive. And I think people often think, I need to be in control of everything and I need to run my own business and I need to be directly authorized, where it's like, well, hang about. Do you really need to be doing that? Or do you need to be doing the thing that you love doing the most, which is maybe sitting down with clients and winning those new client relationships? You touched on your type of client that you're dealing with, right? It sounds like you niche down. It sounds like you're kind of like niching down on a specific type of person, right? A certain type of client that you're looking for. You mentioned shipbrokers, you mentioned lawyers. Sounds very niche to me. How beneficial has that been to kind of stay in your lane? Do you stay in your lane? Or is that just a process that you follow to open up other doors and other opportunities? How does it work? Because people freak out about niching down, so they try and work with everybody, Whereas I'm a firm believer that niching down works. I niche down with financial planners, and it's worked a treat for me.
Yeah, I think niching down. I mean, for me, it's been invaluable. But again, because you then become known. And when you work in a specific field, for example, if you're always going to this one company or this one law firm and you're always seeing different people there, people start to know you and you become the guy that deals with that company, and you get a bit of a reputation. And then from that come loads of referrals. So niching down for me has been pivotal, because as well, then you're dealing with the same stuff all the time and you become a master at it. So I've only now recently, over the last sort of 12 months, started really branching out into different areas. Other than that, prior to that, it was always very much the foundations: protections, pensions, investments. And then once you've done ISAs and general investments, you start looking at maybe VCTs or EIS or offshore bonds. But, I always try to make sure that if you're taking on the same types of clients, you get very good at understanding what it is they actually want, because you hear so many different people say the same things in different words, that it allows you to, I'm sure you've heard the saying, if you can describe someone's or articulate someone's problem to them, they will naturally assume you have a solution. So by speaking to the same types of people who have the same objectives, that are in the same boat, earning the same amount of money under the same company structure, and you go, you deal with that pension provider, don't you? And it just builds a lot of trust, credibility, and from that, you'll master what it is that you actually do. And that will give you the confidence to then start going and doing more uncomfortable areas, because that you've got this piece on lock. So now you can start branching out and going, well, how does trust actually work? How can I use trust? Like, is this something that I should be doing for every client? And again, all you're then doing is you go out, you learn something, you understand its value, you bring it back, and you add value to what it is that you're doing and the proposition that you have for clients.
Yeah, you ask 100 solicitors what their pain points are, right? Then you could ask 10. Those 10 probably share very similar pain points. So when you then go on to your next 10 that you approach, you've already got 10 case studies, examples of the problems that they experience, the pains that they have, the things that they enjoy. And more often than not, it's quite similar person to person. So when you're able to actually identify that within a specific niche, you're able then to very quickly have confidence when you sit down with somebody else to ask the questions, those discovery questions that are going to give you the answers you want. So you can start to lead the conversation without the feeling of like you have to understand everything about them, because you already know, because you've already done some, quite simply what it is market research, right?
And that's it. It's the referrals and the recommendations, because you end up the city's small. It's a small place, especially when you're moving in certain circles, like the shipbroking community. It's very niche. It's very, very small. They all know each other. They all talk, as well as lawyers. So when you start sitting down with multiple people, you start to build a bit of a name for yourself and a reputation. So, and that, again, there's a transference of trust, because they'll sit down and you deal with so-and-so at that company and that partner at this company. I know both of them, and it really, nothing but helps.
What I like about that as well, it's like the B2B to B2C model. So it technically is B2B, right? You're going into people that are quite busy professionals within a business, a profession such as law, right? So technically it feels like B2B. You're not, yes, you want to turn them into your customer, but it is B2B. It's not like you're going out to the mass audience talking about life cover because they've just bought a house, right? And it's different. But the benefit of that as well is that if you can bring those individuals on as clients, and they will have access to their clients, that then they could refer you into their clients. Well, if you're doing a good job for me, then you're going to do a good job for my clients. And I think bigger picture, that's an amazing way to build a business, because all of a sudden, when let's say, for example, you go out and have 50 clients and they're all solicitors, let's say 1, 2, 3 years down the line, they're going to know you so well enough that they're going to refer you in. They might not refer somebody into you, in 6 months or 12 months, but they bloody will later on down the line, the more they get to know you. And that's when this type of business just explodes.
That's it.
I love that. Where can I go and find 1,000 clients through one person?
Yeah.
That's my mindset.
100%. It's crucial. And I think, I've had lawyers refer me clients, and I think when you get that, we were speaking before, like that, it's like the validation. That's when I think you really know that you're doing good by people, because people are willing to refer you to like their mum or their clients, people that are really important and trusted. That's more, I know it sounds crazy, that's more important than them coming on board, because, for example, I would sooner give you my money, but I wouldn't let you have my mum's money. It's like that transference of trust is really important, and the reputation you build is equally the most important thing, because that's all we've got, right?
Yeah, it's all about trust. Absolutely. Working within financial planning, running your own business, it's stressful. It can take its toll on your personal well-being, your mental health. It's hard. Any advice to anybody? You've opened up to me quite honestly that at times you found things quite tough, right? But what do you do, or what advice could you give to somebody else to be able to look after themselves, to be able to perform at a higher level?
I think discipline is extremely important. So making sure that, for me, I have to train, like mentally and physically. I need to sweat. I need to move weight around, because I find that kickstarts everything. So I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of, I'm always looking at personal development. So whether it's an Audible or whether it's a book I'm reading. And I think I've been very fortunate that my family are a big support network for me. As a Greek man, I've got a lot of family, but my brothers are and my sister and my mum and my dad, they're very growth-minded individuals. So I'm very lucky that I've got that support network to go and talk to. And, we have really deep, challenging conversations. But I think if you don't necessarily have that, or you haven't got the network to be able to leverage that, I think investing in your mind is the most important thing. Listening to Brian Tracy, or listening to different, I could name you loads, but different salespeople, or different, I think, mindset coaches. I suppose it's more about just making sure that you're constantly doing little things that give you wins, that build your confidence. Because every time you do something and you deliver on what it is that you say you're going to do, it builds your confidence. And I think just really making sure that, the first 2 years were dark. There were some really low points. And I think being able to just take control by taking control of the disciplines that I instill in myself really helped me navigate, and it really helped bring this into fruition. So I think making sure that you're disciplined in whether it's training, or whether it's running, or whether it's, I don't know, something. Personally for me, I need to move. So I think training, journaling's been big, very important, and just having some time to study. So whether that's something that's conducive to the calls, right? So if you need to get better at presenting, negotiating, selling, then spending some time every week where you just allocate an hour to learn about it, it compounds. Those hours add up over the course of the year, and that's how you get your reps in.
Yeah, self-reflection, self-development. And one thing you said there, which I think is hugely important, having a support network around you, people you can talk to, people that are going to listen to you, somebody that can give you perspective. And it's not always somebody who works within the business. No. It could be people outside of that. It could be your family. Having those people, if you haven't got it, then go and find that little tribe of people.
You have to elevate your network.
You have to elevate your network. Surround yourself with the people that inspire you and want to be with you.
Yeah, you have to hold yourself accountable as well. If no one else, and that's one thing of having people around you, if they're good people, they'll hold you accountable to the standards and the actions that you talk about.
Yeah.
And if you haven't got that, you have to hold yourself accountable, because if you don't, no one else will. So I find that the journaling allows you to do that, like the reflection, and just asking yourself a few questions consistently. You get data, and the data allows you to go, well, this isn't working, this is working.
I think accountability, as you just said a second ago, is huge. It's so powerful for personal development and growth.
Oh, yeah.
And if you haven't got it, go and find somebody, whether it's a life coach, whether it's a business coach, go and lean into that, because it adds a huge amount of value to your life. You're only going to learn by writing down the things that are going on in your head and gaining some perspective, taking ownership of it and pushing forward and making change.
100%. And you'll also learn much more about yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly saying you're going to do something, and then the data, the journaling is showing you, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, you'll start, because a lot of us, we live lives and we just have this like warped reality of what we think, what you think you're like. Most people don't really know themselves, and they think better or worse sometimes of themselves in certain aspects of their life.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that by just making certain notes and tracking what you say you're going to do, or different disciplines, or whatever it is, you start to really learn, actually, do I keep my word? Do I deliver on what I say I'm going to deliver, or am I a bit guilty of not doing that? Because you can change, right? And that's the most important thing. You have to know what you're actually like as a person. And if you ask, I don't know, 5 people that are really close to you, ask them questions about yourself, like, do you think I'm a good communicator? Or where do you think I could improve? And you start getting different answers. You'll be surprised at what people think of you.
Yeah.
If they're willing to be honest, that is.
That's the thing. It's, again, finding those people that have got the courage to be honest with you, because you can be honest with them back. Yeah. And again, find those people, keep a hold of them. They could be friends, they could be family, they could be acquaintances, they could be somebody that works in a completely different company to you, right?
I call them mirrors.
Mirrors.
That's what my brother is. My brother always, every time I look at my brother, it's like holding up the mirror.
Yes.
So if ever I don't know, I've said I'm going to like go to the gym and I've not gone to the gym. As soon as I see him, I instantly go, I should have gone to I didn't. Okay. I feel the need to like justify almost.
Yeah.
It's like, but I think when you have a mirror, someone that holds you accountable, it helps you helps you get further in life.
That's David Goggins. He's got the accountability mirror, isn't he? David Goggins.
Oh, Goggins.
Right, brilliant. Listen, I talked to you all day long. Nikos, it's been really great to hear about your career journey and the success you've had and the support you're getting here at Foster Denovo. What a fantastic company to get you. You obviously are also a very disciplined individual, so a lot of this is down to do with you. But as we said, it is also who you surround yourself with.
100%.
Right?
I wouldn't be half as far as I am now without a firm like Foster Denovo behind me. 100%.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Nikos, great stuff. I wish you all the success in the future.
Cheers, Sam. Thank you.